Hello, hello, lovely people. I'm so excited. Our very first episode of the People First podcast, and I'm joined by the wonderful Beth, who is going to who's going to introduce herself and also came to me with this very interesting and powerful topic around the importance of peer networks that we're going to be diving into today. So hi, Beth.
Hi, Nikki. Um,
Hello.
Hi. So I'm Beth. I am the head of people for a fintech in Cheshire.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I've been working in learning and HR for around about 20 years or so now, something like that.
Yes. Also, side note, how fun the way of the internet is. I met Beth through LinkedIn and then we end up living less than an hour from each other.
No.
Isn't always the case. Okay, so tell me a little bit about why you wanted to speak to the power of peer networks.
So you and I had this chat, didn't we, about well, it came from the timepiece, but also kind of learning and working with kind of colleagues on learning, and we got very quickly into that conversation about peer networks, and it's something that when we got chatting about it, I realized that I was never taught how to do, and I learned through error and trial and a bit more error in my probably 30s how to do this, and I think it's probably been the most transformative thing for my career professionally. And I think it's something that actually it's a skill that we don't get taught very quickly in our careers, but it's really, really powerful when we do get it. I think some people got it naturally. Some people are the friendly peer network people. Some of us aren't. I put
Yeah.
myself in that.
Yes, and I love what you say about it being a skill because skills are learnable.
Yeah,
And I think more often than not, we think in that second school of thought that you just mentioned, which is I'm either born with it or I'm not. And if I'm not, then that's where I am and it's not movable.
yeah.
And our intention, just for everyone listening, is wherever you are in that skill right now today to just make it easier and more accessible for you to develop the skill to build a peer network because of the value of it. So I'd love to start with you even like, let's get people warmed up into like, yes, I want this skill. So for you, what's been the power?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I found myself in a situation where I was working with apprenticeships. The apprenticeship levy kind of all happened about 2017. And there are a few of us, I think, around the country who were given the blessed joy of being handed like a big pot full of money and told to go and spend it. It was an epic job. But I was sadly in a position where I had literally no idea what apprenticeships were. I hadn't worked with them previously. I'm not the kind of person who's naturally going to read great big fat government reports. So I was kind of sat there with this big yawning gap that I needed to fill really quickly in my knowledge. And so I decided to do that by finding loads of other people that didn't know about this stuff or might know a bit more than me and trying to gather a group of people around me so I could learn more quickly. And I think for me, that was where I realized that actually a lot of my learning happens in discussion. So I don't tend to learn from reading. I tend to learn much more from talking, being talked with. And so I built this network, and I remember sitting in this coffee shop wearing a name badge on my own around about 2017, feeling very nervous. And I think two people turned up, but very quickly found myself facilitating events for this group. And what happened was in that probably first 6 months, I accelerated my learning in a way that I never could have done without that group. So the things I learned, the nuances that I picked up, the contextual stuff that even reading a report was never going to teach me was amazing. And I also started to build connections with other people that brought me other learning and experience. And we started working on side projects. And it was one of those things that the spin off becomes the spin off becomes the spin off. And you don't even know where this could end up now. So, and I think for me, I hadn't realized what a powerful tool it was because
Yeah.
I'm naturally a bit awkward and I don't love networking because can't remember names. I'm really bad at that. I'm not good with small talk. Like small talk is uncomfortable for me on a really epic level. So I'd always avoided it, I think,
Yes.
um, and thought it wasn't for me until I found myself in this situation where I felt like I had no other option.
Yes.
And when I did it, actually, it was fascinating how quickly I learned from it.
I love it. And also, as you're speaking, I'm realizing that's kind of what we're doing with this podcast as well, because I think there's so many different ways to be surrounded by peers. And these days, maybe you do still go sit in the coffee shop with a label on, but also that's kind of what we're doing here. We're creating a peer network and access to, you know, not more informed, but more experienced or different experience
Yeah.
network that we can
People with other
consume.
contexts, people with other contexts that you might not have, and those moments where you see something from a different angle and you're like, oh yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And from the comfort of our homes. We
Yeah,
can,
I know. And that's really interesting as well, because the first, because I've set up a new network recently, and that first network was very physical. We got together once a month, we'd sit in a room, we'd share knowledge.
Mhm.
And we had a little bit of online stuff, but it didn't work very well, to be honest. Most of what happened was in the room. And this newer network that I've built now is entirely digital. So I think moving it into our living rooms and our kitchens has definitely changed the way we do it, but not what we do. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Amazing. So let's start with really, I do want to speak about how to create a peer network. And obviously you've got lots of different experience, but I almost want to start with how to find one, because I don't think everyone listening will want to create one.
Yeah.
So how to find a peer network.
Yeah, and I think so. I'm going to give you the experience that I've been through recently, because I was looking for a new network. So
Yeah.
I that first network that I built, I stopped working with apprenticeships. I left the region, and it was very regional. So I kind of handed it over to some network members that were really involved, and kind of said, see ya, and haven't got round to setting up a new one. COVID and job changes and everything that life throws at us. So I knew I wanted to get more involved in networking. I knew it had value for my career, but I didn't know where to go. So I started looking for other networks to join. And I think where did I find them? LinkedIn. People on LinkedIn sharing about their networks and talking about them. Other people that I've been in touch with through work. I found a few on Facebook. I found a few, and once you find one, you tend to find another. So Facebook can be a good source. So I work in HR, and obviously if you put in HR into Facebook, you'll find network groups, and the same on LinkedIn. The best ones I've found recently tend to have a lot of WhatsApp interaction. So it does mean your phone pings quite a lot, but it's also quite instant as well, and quite digestible. But my experience with that is I would encourage people to feel confident with reaching out and connecting with a network, but also feel confident if that network doesn't work for them, that's okay. That's just not their network.
Yes.
So I'll give you one example. I'm in one network in Facebook, which is lovely. It's just full of HR people backing each other. So I think in our industry, sometimes we can feel like we're taking care of everybody else's well-being and not always taking care of our own. So it's a really lovely network of people kind of going, oh my God, I've had the worst day, and being that safe place. And that's really, really lovely. But I kind of quickly felt like it wasn't giving me this other thing that I wanted, which was peer learning rather than peer emotional support. There's another network that I'm in that's like a leaders network, which is awesome. There's HR directors from around the planet in there, but it's not really a totally safe place to ask a stupid question. I don't feel very safe there. So again, finding a network that doesn't quite do what you need helps you understand what it is that you do need. So for me, two things that I really need are, one is safety. I can say something completely stupid, I can crack a joke, I can be a bit dumb and never feel kind of like I'm not safe there to do that. It existed in the peer support one, in the emotional support one, but not in the kind of knowledge-based one. Certainly not for me. I'm not suggesting it's scary. I don't want anyone to think that I am, but it's for me personally, I just didn't feel safe. So as safe as I would like to. And then again, the peer support one it's not focused on learning, it's focused on emotional support. It's quite interesting. I was talking to a friend of mine who set up she works in financial crime, and not financial crime, just to be she's not a money launderer, she's quite the opposite.
Yes.
But she was saying in that particular industry, there's a lot of learning networks, there's a lot of peer learning networks, but not a lot of peer support networks. So she set up one at the other end of the spectrum, which was really interesting.
Yeah.
But for her, she felt like learning was a big thing that was happening there, but not that kind of, oh my God, it's been a rough day kind of conversation. So LinkedIn's definitely a great place. Eventbrite can be good as well. They can be quite regionally based and quite physical, but if you're up for kind of leaving the house and going for a cup of tea with someone, that could work.
Which can be very nice, let's all agree.
Yeah, absolutely. And just putting a shout out on LinkedIn, like, you know, I'm looking to join a professional peer network. Is there anyone out there? You'd be surprised who might grab you and be like, I've got one if you want to come and see what we've got.
Yes, amazing. And I love how you've jumped, like in answering that one question, you've jumped into two others, but I love how you
Sorry.
back in some. No, it's brilliant. This is when me and Beth first met, this was the whole conversation, like super fast, super amazing, all over, and then coming in. So I love how you came back round to, I think it's just about asking, and you can ask in person, you can ask someone that you work with, someone that you used to work with, you can ask online, you can do a Google search, you can do a Facebook search. I love what you said about Eventbrite as well. If people are looking for that more local connection and community, because the next thing that you went to, which was how to pick, I was going to ask you about how to pick, and you kind of touched that on like, what do you want, and being willing to think what you want is what you want, right? So I think I want the emotional support, and then seeing what gaps there are for you. So we've spoken about emotional support, we've spoken about educational support. Is there any other big themes that you see in these networking groups that people could look out for?
That's a good question. I think kind of more mentoring related things. So those spaces where it's less learning and more kind of career guidance. So I put that somewhere in the middle that, you know, I'm trying to get in this direction. I'm not sure what to do. So I'd say mentoring is probably the other one that I see quite often.
Yes.
And usually they're based around a topic. So it's, you know, if it's industry specific, or if it's, you know, support specific, or if it's career specific, there's a particular thing that you're interested in using the network for. If you're not sure, just get in there and try some things, because it's like work, right? You know, like sometimes you've got to start a job to decide what you don't like about it. So, you know, I learned early on I don't like admin because I'm not very good at it, you know, like, but I had to do an admin job to be like, oh yeah, I'm not very good at this, am I? Like, the I don't like it is as good as what I do like. It points you in the right direction. So sometimes just getting in there and getting a feel like this isn't right for me helps you understand what will be.
Yes, absolutely. And I imagine it's like probably the first one that you join feels like a big deal. Like, how do I introduce myself? What do I say? Who do I meet? How do I use this? Hopefully, the community facilitators, and we'll speak about this and how to create them, you know, create some kind of way to ease yourself in, and also just knowing that that first one might feel terrifying, but the next one will feel easier. And so you just have to start, because the sooner you start building that intentional peer network, the sooner you'll, you know, feel comfortable, benefit, know what you want, know what you don't want.
Yeah. Get those good feels or those bad vibes, like this one's for me, this one's not.
Yes. Yes. And actually, I was speaking about this with someone recently about, you know, when you are leading a community, not when I was growing my coaching community of clients, I really thought like, I want to create a space for everyone. And I worked with a DEI coach, and she was like, you cannot create a safe space for everyone. You have to be clear on your values, communicate them, and you will attract and repel people that feel safe in that space. And it's such an important thing just for anyone listening, that if you do not feel safe in a space, it does not mean you will not feel safe in any space. It means try the next one.
Yeah, that one's not yours. Yeah. And it's interesting what you say about repelling people, because I think when lots of us think about networking, or certainly when I was, you know, inexperienced with it, networking for me was meant to be about more people, not less. Actually, some of that is actually about being, you know, drawing those boundaries and being like, yeah, please don't come and join this network because this one's not for you. Like, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And actually, sometimes people join and just leave straight away because it's not for them. And, you know, that's fine. Like, that means it's working.
That means it's working. That means it's working. That's so good, because I'm sure we also do have people listening that do want to create their own community and their own peer network, which is something you've got a few different experiences in. So when it comes to creating a peer network, talk to us about that. What are some of the considerations?
Yeah, so having a topic is a great place to start. Like, so for example, that peer network that I'm in, which is all about kind of support and care, and this is a safe place, that it was created very much with that as the intention. And that means that the person steering that group is trying very hard to hold it in that furrow. So having an idea. So my first one was apprenticeships. I was like, I know nothing about apprenticeships. Anyone else doing this stuff? That was quite a good topic.
Yeah.
Whereas my latest network is more around, well, increasingly it's about people in smaller businesses. So one of the things that I think I found in my career is lots of us have come from big businesses or small businesses. In big businesses, there'll be 4 or 5 of you, and you can look around the room and be like, oh, they've got something I need. And oh, I've got something I can share with them. So you've got that immediate network. Whereas certainly as you get more senior or as you get into smaller businesses, I think both of those things actually refine the group of people around you immediately. And it can leave you kind of unclear on who are your reference points. So, I've just written a talent strategy. Is it any good? Can someone just come and knock it around with me safely? Like you can't do that as you're in smaller businesses and as you get more senior. So the latest group certainly is about kind of just people who are working in and around kind of upper mid-level roles in HR and people and OD and learning, just kind of supporting each other in various different ways.
I love that because it's just such a good example to what we were speaking about earlier around like you can find the community around what you want support around. So people that want support around smaller companies or less access to larger teams, like that exists. So that gives, I'm hoping that inspires people. If that is you, we'll definitely be speaking about Beth's community and how you can find them. But if that's not you, to maybe think about, oh, maybe I could find a community. And essentially it sounds like a niche.
Yeah, and it is, because what matters to you, what are you trying to get out of it, and can you find other people that want the same thing? So that's, once you've got a vague idea of a direction. So this direction actually came up. I've been trying to rack my brains for one for ages.
Yeah.
And a very good friend of mine was like, I'm thinking about maybe doing some side gigs, and I wish I knew more people in our industry. And I was like, I'm trying to build a network. So that's where it came from, that conversation about someone wanting to do side gigs. But what it very quickly became was, I don't know enough about that bit. I don't know enough about that bit. And I was like, I'm not sure my knowledge is up to date, actually. It's a while since I looked at that stuff. So then it started to bubble into, like, how do we stay in touch with each other? So from that, the next thing I did was just try and invite some people. So once you found a topic, it's then trying to connect with people that might like that topic. So for me personally, I put a shout out on Facebook to everybody I've ever worked with. I was like, hi lads, setting up a network, anyone coming? And I didn't put a shout out on LinkedIn. The reason being, I was worried I'd get swamped with people trying to flog me things. I'm just being really honest. I was a bit nervous about lots of people coming and trying to sell me things. Get a little pounded on there. So what I did instead was a few people that I follow or I'm connected with on LinkedIn, I may or may not know, I just reached out to them and said, I'm thinking about building this thing. Do you want to join? And I've sent a lot of random requests to people who've blatantly ignored me, and they're absolutely welcome to. Yes. But I've also had a few people kind of come and bring their friends as well. So, and that's that moment where it starts to mushroom. You're like, oh, great, okay. Actually, I've never even met half these people. They've been brought by other people. That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah, but I think that the most important thing to do at that point then is to make sure that you know what your purpose is. Like, what is it that we do here, and what are the ground rules? So as you said, like, set those boundaries, so that as people bring new people in, they can see who we are and what we are, and that purpose.
I love that you shared that, because I think people, it's like that honesty around being willing to be rejected, being willing to be ignored, because your values, your mission, your purpose is actually bigger, and kind of what we spoke about, like, and it's not supposed to be for everyone.
Yeah, it's not a popularity contest like this, and it's it's okay that people aren't up for it. Like, that's absolutely fine. So interestingly, one of the first rules, kind of the group that I'm with at the moment, agreed was, like, safety first, which I was super proud that I didn't even bring that up, someone else did. But just in terms of, like, join, leave, engage, disengage, whatever's working for you right now. Like, there's zero judgment here. If you delete the WhatsApp group and then join again later, no one's going to care.
Yeah.
Like, mute us, don't mute, like, whatever it's feeling like for you, that's absolutely fine. No apologies necessary. And it was just a really nice kind of, first rule that was agreed by the group. But also, people join and leave. Like, I had a couple of people that have joined and just instantly left, and I'm okay with that. Like,
yes, and I love what you shared, because people can also join and leave in seasons. And I think sometimes we do think, like, oh, if I leave, I can't come back. This is it.
Yeah, especially on WhatsApp, you've got that. Vicky has just left the group chat. Like, it's like it's like a digital equivalent of slamming a door. Like, and we've all agreed, like, slam the door and feel free to open it again. No one's going to mind. So
yes. Yes, I love that. And just for anyone, I think it was interesting what you said earlier about WhatsApp, and like lots of messages, but also the fast response time. can also mute WhatsApp chats, which I think is really great because you can mute them for like 8 days or 2 weeks. I can't remember exactly, but that's also a nice option there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've got a couple that I'm in that I generally have muted, but I'll go and jump in every couple of days and just have a look and see what's happened and what people are chatting about.
Yes. Okay, so we've got get clear on your rules, get clear on your like kind of purpose and your why and what you're looking for. Um, and then I love that you were just willing to message people, message past connections, invite people in. It made me think of like a party when you were speaking, right? Like you're just
Yeah,
like inviting people to this party. And if you, I also think like if you're inviting people to a party and they can't come, you're not like, oh, this is personal against me. You're like, yeah, don't come to the party. You've
yeah,
probably got
just because.
plans, or you don't like barbecue or doing barbecue, whatever it might be. But I love the boldness and knowing you, it makes sense. Um, and for anyone that maybe feels a bit less I love what you shared about reaching out to a few people and saying like, hey, do you want to join? And do you have anyone else you want to bring to this party? And people will. Like if
Yeah.
you are providing something that is genuinely helpful, then people will tell other people.
And that's where it gets interesting, because I think this was probably my biggest learn between the first one and the second one. That the first one I was quite nervous of leading. I was like, it doesn't feel like, at the same time as everybody was looking at me like, right, Beth, you've created this network, what you can do with it. I was like, I don't know. Like, I just put you in a room. I didn't know I had to do things. So then being comfortable with the difference between facilitating and directing, like,
Yeah.
and that there is a difference. So, you know, this network will only work if everybody, certainly the first kind of seed members, feel like it's their group, not Beth's group. Like, this is not the Beth show, this is our collective group. So it's not me setting the rules, it's us as a collective. And every single time we get together, so we have the WhatsApp group, but we have a monthly get together where we have a like, how's life, you know, what's happened, but now actually let's have a look at some learning content together. So that's where the kind of learning magic happens. And I think, you know, every time we do that, we look at the rules again and just go, is everyone still happy with these? Do we want to make any changes? Is it still working? So it helps me go, those were the rules, you signed up for them. But it also gives everybody the opportunity to say, yeah, like, yeah, no, that is my group's rules. Like, I feel good with that. So it's kind of like, I'm sure people who are in like groups on Facebook know you've got to go read the rules and tick the little boxes. It's, you know, it's just the physical kind of embodiment of that in a video call, or, you know, whenever new people join, I send them to them.
Yes.
So for example, one of the rules in ours is like, silliness is welcome. So memes, gifs, general giddiness, laughing at each other for some stupid thing we've done this week. So the safety thing that I really kind of hoped for,
Yeah.
you know, that's part of this group as well. So, you know, we send that over so that then, you know, when they get a meme from me on a Monday morning, no one's surprised.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that really is a unique intentional culture that you've created, and that's not for everyone, and it's definitely for some people. So I think it's just such a good example. I also love how you speak about your experience doing both, because okay, now with this community, you're more seasoned, you've got the experience, you've got the learning, but the willingness to do it the first time without knowing, you know, what it meant to get everyone in the room, without knowing, you know, maybe thinking more about like a hierarchical structure that now you don't want, all of these things. It's like that willingness to move is what makes you smarter and more effective. And I just love that for anyone listening that's like, I couldn't do it because I don't know. I think what Beth's saying is like, exactly, just start and then you'll know.
And you're going to get stuff wrong. Like, that's just the nature of learning. It's just another word for learning, right? Getting things wrong. So, and the trick is in being able to look at it and go, oh yeah, that could have gone better. Yeah, like, I'll make sure I do it this way next time, you know? So I'll stand up sooner, or I'll take ownership of facilitation sooner, or, you know, not move into director mode by accident and disengage people. So, yeah. So, and then the intentional sessions that we have, which are once a month, which are our kind of get together.
Yes.
Again, it's completely like, if you can turn up, turn up. If you can't, you don't even need to apologize. Just don't worry. But we always cover a topic. So last month we went through a EQ tool that I've seen recently that I thought was quite cool. And I've not seen EQ for a while. It kind of disappeared into the ether and reappeared. And I was like, oh look, EQ. So we went through that. That was pretty cool. And this month we're doing a session called "What the hell is strategy anyway?" Because we all get asked to write a strategy, and it's like, is this a strategy? It's a Word document, it's PowerPoint, like it's 4 slides, it's 400. Like, what is it? So those of us that have written strategies in the last couple of months, we're all just going to bring one to the room and just look at them and be like, oh, I like the way you've done that. Oh, I've never thought about, oh, that, yeah, no, I do it this way. So it's not necessarily kind of teaching, it's more just people bringing stuff to the room, and we use it as an opportunity to kind of pick each other's brains and learn together. So the facilitation comes in that helping the group to pick a topic, having some back pocket topics in case we've got stuck, and then just making space for that to happen. So.
I love it. And I'm actually going to go into Beth's group and speak about how to kind of, you know, speak as an expert on things like podcasts, because we had a nice chat around that. And so just to see, like, it can also be about building your personal brand in the world so that you can grow. And I think that's also a fun thing. It's like in the work and in your career development. So it can really support both. I love that you're doing that. So let's speak a little bit about, and this feels almost like going back a little bit, but really how to contribute to a peer network, because I think you're right. We often come to it like, I need something, I want something, I'm craving something. And I don't think communities are built sustainably when every person is coming in to take. So, and I think also a lot of people might discount their knowledge or their experience and see themselves as not someone who can contribute. Whereas my belief, and I'm pretty sure yours, is that everyone can contribute. So how do you contribute in these communities?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think that one way to contribute is, you know, especially either if you joined earlier, it's a relatively small group, is supporting the facilitators, the people who are kind of owning and running that group, because they don't know all the answers, and sometimes it can get a little bit, you know, there's certainly in my first group there was a snowball moment where suddenly there were 250 people in this group, and I was like, oh my god, like getting Eventbrite set up and stuff like that kind of all got to be a bit of admin. And so it was brilliant when a few people stepped forward and took some of that off me. So, you know, even just offering to help, being like, you know, do you want me to kind of arrange the next session or whatever? And then kind of allowing kind of extra topics to come to the surface. Yeah, there've been a couple of instances recently that I can think of where someone's kind of mentioned something in passing in the WhatsApp group, and I'm like, would you bring that as a learning topic, do you think? Because everyone's really interested in it. So even just asking questions, so encouraging some other people to facilitate stuff. So, you know, there might be things that you're like, I could Google the answer to this. But actually, if I drop it into the network, it might trigger an interesting conversation within the network. So sometimes actually it's not you're asking, but what you're doing is you're creating a discussion. So if it's gone quiet in there for a couple of days, there are a couple of people I know in my network that will be the first people to pop up and be like, had this thing happened, what would you do? And to some degree, I think they may be doing it just to enable the group rather than necessarily because they're after an answer. So.
Which is great. Although I recently decided to take to Facebook to ask a question around baby sleeping through the night, and I got like 40 plus comments, all completely different. And I was like, whoa. But again, I wasn't looking to facilitate a conversation. I was looking for someone to tell me that I would sleep the night someday, and what song to sing, and how many, you know, jumps up and down to do to get my baby to sleep through the night. And that is not as predictable, but I think it does spark, I did see it spark an interesting conversation. So just personal side note. So yeah, I think for contributing, it's don't be afraid to ask and get connected with the people facilitating, especially if you're willing to support them in some way. I think so often we can look at people and be like, well, they've got it all together because they're leading this.
That was my no face.
Best face in. But yes, I think getting involved however you want to, whatever that looks like to you. And I also think it's okay if you just want to be a lurker and you just want to get the behind the scenes. I think that's the advantage of a podcast as well, right? But also in a community, you know, just wanting to be that lurker, wanting to benefit from everyone else's juicy questions and contributions, until maybe that point comes, much like Beth, you had that point of like, no, I want support on this specific thing. So yeah,
and I think those, you know, mentoring relationships, those natural mentoring relationships that happen, those moments of, you know, actually when I'm so, you know, I'm working on recruitment at the moment, there's someone in my network who's, you know, like a god at recruitment, to be able to grab them and be like, can you come and spend an hour with me to give me a hand with this thing, because I'm not sure what I'm doing. So even outside of the network, to have now built those connections, and I see people doing that. I know there's we had a catch up last week, and two people on the network realized they live like in the same town. I'm pretty certain they've been for a cup of coffee together by now. You know, those kind of like, it's not just what happens inside of the network, it's the offshoots that happen from that. It's those peer support moments, and those people, you know, those people that come to me and say like, I've got this thing going on, have you dealt with it? I'm like, oh yeah, I've done about 20, come and see me and I'll tell you all the stupid things I did before I got to the 15th one and got it right. And so yeah, it's that, those reference points that come from not just necessarily using the network in the way that it was designed for, but actually it's the offshoot stuff. That's where there's huge benefit to be had.
Absolutely. I love that. Is there anything else you want to share on this topic before we let people know about your network and how to find you, and also let them know about the podcast and see if they want to put themselves forward?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I think we've covered most of the key points, Vicky.
Yes, I hope the listeners agree. I do think it's fun to just know that it's just a matter of like, you know, wanting to find them, being willing to get it wrong and keep going, being willing to ask, being willing to fail forward, and you can. I think another thing that Beth, you shared for all the listeners today is like almost a simplicity of like, if you want a community around something that doesn't exist, don't be afraid to create it imperfectly.
And you know, I think I always thought that this kind of stuff was done by people who were like really good, like they knew their stuff, like that, you know, I don't know, this was like for those other people that were absolutely amazing, not for like normal mortals like me. And then, you know, I probably said this to you, you know, the epiphany is there is no epiphany, you know, the sudden realization is like, actually, it's just people like me. Reaching out to people going, I'm not really sure what I'm doing. Does anybody want to come and help me? People want to help.
Yeah.
And it turns out that's the thing. I saw a thing the other day and it was like, you know, lots of people see like people with amazing physiques working out and they think, you know, it was the working out that gave them the amazing physique, but often it's the other way around. Like they had an amazing natural swimmer's physique and that's why they're finding it easy to work out. And like, it's the same kind of thing. Like I was like, oh, these people must be amazing. It's what makes you amazing. It's what gives you all those kind of tools and reference points that you didn't know you needed.
So. I love that so much. So tell everyone about your community and how they can find it.
Yeah, so Beth Orford on LinkedIn, just drop me a hello. It'd be really nice to not be cyber stalking other people and to get cyber stalked in this direction. So we're still quite small. And we have, as I've said, a super friendly, giddy WhatsApp group full of me being daft and us asking each other kind of supportive questions. And then once a month we'll get together and cover a topic like what the hell is strategy anyway? And lots of offshoot conversations that happen. So yeah, come and grab me if you want to have a chat. It's all online, so you know, it doesn't matter where you are. And everybody's welcome.
Amazing. Everybody's welcome, but you will self-select.
Yeah.
You'll leave quite quickly. Like.
Once too many memes from me, they'll be like, oh no, this is not for me. I'm like, good learn.
Amazing. So thank you everyone for listening and to our very first episode of the People First podcast. And if you or someone you know you think has something to say, some value to offer to people, then the link will be in the show notes to fill out a form and submit yourself, as well as my LinkedIn profile. You can also DM me and we can get you on the podcast talking about what you want to talk about and what you wish you'd known maybe 15, 20, or even 2 years ago. And we'll get your podcast recorded. Thank you so much, Beth, for sharing your wisdom.
Very honoured. Feel very honoured being on the inaugural session. Thank you very much. I wish you lots of success with it.
Thank you. I'm excited to see where it goes. I remember, you know this, I have another podcast and it's now over 700,000 downloads, but I remember the very first episode, I remember it reaching 17 downloads and being like, whoa.
That's more than my family.
And my family's only like 4 or 5, so I was like, there's some new people there. So it's always fun to remember the start of something, I think, and be in the start of something. And I think that's a nice takeaway for everyone listening as well, to be in the start of building your peer network.
Yeah.
All right, lovely listeners, we'll catch you next week. Bye.